I'm an associate professor of physics and astronomy here at the University of Louisville, and we are presenting the 13th annual Bullitt Lecture in Astronomy. It's named in honor of William Marshall Bullitt, who was a lawyer here in Kentucky. He was a man of letters. Oops. Oh yes, he was a man. Okay. Welcome to the 13th annual Bullitt Lecture in Astronomy. My name is Jerry Villiger. I'm an associate professor of physics and astronomy here at the University of Louisville. The William Marshall Bullitt Lecture series is named in honor of a man who was a lawyer here in Kentucky. He was Solicitor General under President Taft, but he also did many other things. He had intense interests in mathematics, in astronomy, a learned person. He liked learning. He left a collection of books. He had a great collection of books, and he also instilled a value for learning in his family and in the community. And so his family and Mr. Lowry Watkins Jr. have endowed this lecture series to carry on his memory and also to continue his legacy of promoting learning in the community. So,
U of L Law School.
Oh yes, oh yes. All right, okay, that's better. Yes, William Marshall Bullitt was a lawyer, and his family is also endowed other parts of the university. There's a Bullitt Lecture series in mathematics, in art. There have been gifts to the law school. Is there a law talk as well? There's a lecture in law. And he was an alumnus of the law school here. So he's a Louisville man. And I'm still learning about him too. But the most important thing is that his legacy of learning is continuing, and that's what we're doing here, and I'm very happy to have you here. Part of his legacy is not just this lecture series, but also some scholarships and an award. So I would like to call, you want to do this all three at once? Or okay. I'd like to call Brian Enders and Eric Feil and David Warder down, please. Because these young men are this year's Bullitt Scholars, and actually we've had about a dozen Bullitt Scholars here. One of them is right here, Matt Nichols. If you're a Bullitt Scholar, could you please stand up or raise your hand? You're a Bullitt Scholar here, there are a few of you here. So we're continuing a tradition. Our Bullitt Scholars have gone on to do great things. They're in graduate school. Some of them are in the fine profession of teaching and in research. So Lowry, would you like to present the envelopes here to Brian? Put these in alphabetical order. Brian, David, and Eric, or Brian, Eric, and David, and this one is for best paper. So this is for Brian Enders. Thank you. Eric Feil. And David Warder. So they are joining part of a fine alumni group of scholars who have done good things in astronomy. They study astronomy in the classroom. They do research as well. And we are actually creating a website which will celebrate their accomplishments and let you know what they do. So thank you very much, Brian Enders, Eric Feil, and David Warder. And I've taught all three, and they're all good students. I would also like to call Karen Collins down. Is Karen around? Karen Collins is a graduate student here, and you may remember there was a press release from the University of Louisville on the discovery of an exoplanet. It's from the KELT program. Can you tell us what KELT is?
KELT is the kilodegree extremely little telescope. It's a camera just about like the one Matt's using there with a nice lens on it. And it takes photographs of the sky about every 5 minutes on every clear night. It's out in Arizona. And it helps us discover planets that we use our larger telescope here in Louisville to do confirmation and characterization work. So.
Karen is a graduate student actually she did a master's thesis with me, and she's doing a PhD with John Kielkopf, who's another faculty member here. And do you need a giant telescope to detect exoplanets around other stars?
We do not need a giant telescope. We have the perfect size telescope here at University of Louisville. It's fantastic to use. If you're at all interested in astronomy, please come study here. Great support staff. Jerry actually introduced me to the Kelt team, who basically gave me the foundation to do the planet discovery work.
There are actually some Society of Physics students here, Society of Physics students members here who have little name tags, and after the lecture they'll be happy to talk with you. So I'd like to call Mr. Lowry Watkins Jr. here to present Karen with her Best Paper Award. This is a relatively new award.
Thank you.
And when you're a student here, we encourage you not just to excel in the classroom, but research and learning new things is frankly a lot of fun.
Absolutely. There's a song goes something like staying up all night to get lucky. So that's popular right now. I'm talking about a different kind of lucky than maybe the song is, but we're being lucky to find planets. And I want to also thank you. I won this award a couple of years ago, I think, and I wanted to thank Lowry. I actually used part of the money that came with that to purchase some software that I used for the Kelt 6 paper. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen. So we're continuing a fine tradition of education here. Actually, astronomers use all sorts of telescopes. They use big ones. They use little ones. They do computer models to discover new things as well. And if you're interested in this sort of thing, we'll be happy to tell you more about what we do afterwards. But what we'd like to do now is to introduce our 13th Bullitt Lecturer. Her name is Dr. Virginia Trimble. She is from California, from Southern California. She went to UCLA as an undergraduate, and then was the first woman PhD student in astronomy at Caltech who didn't come as part of a package with a husband. She did it on her own steam, and this is Caltech in 1964. You might think, how can they do that? Well, that's the way it was, and so she saw the door and she kicked it in, and here she is today. She actually has been all over the world. She worked for a number of years in one of the most unique situations I know of, which I think is wonderful. She was at the University of California at Irvine, and then she met her husband, Joe. Help.
If you've never heard of Joe Weber, go away.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the name, okay, it's just I had a brain cramp. Anyway, her husband was at the University of Maryland, and what they did was they split their time between the University of California at Irvine and the University of Maryland for a number of years.
30.
And it was very productive. And in the meantime, she did other things like reviewed the entire body of astronomical literature for many years. So she knows about all branches of astronomy. She served on many, many committees. She was vice president of the American Astronomical Society, vice president of the International Astronomical Union, and also continues to teach at the University of California at Irvine. She's working on astronomy, astronometrics, telescope metrics. Help.
Scientometrics.
Scientometrics, yes. I'm getting my lessons here. Basically measures of how efficient and how productive scientists, observatories, and telescopes are. So she is going to talk to us about some very key science that was done starting a century ago and actually throughout the last 100 years, and the intersection of the various branches of science and how they affect us today. So, Dr. Trimble.
I don't need that because Mr. Foster has just turned this one on, has he? Yoo-hoo. There we go. Okay. You can deduce from that introduction I've never actually worked for a living, and God willing, I never shall. What I want to talk about this evening is the idea that history is written by the winners. You already know that for the kind of history that you learned in high school, or you are learning if you're still in high school. The histories of the Civil War were largely written by the North. It is also true that the history of science is written by the winners, and the winners in science nearly always have been the people willing to accept ideas, technology, advice, data from people in other branches of science. Hence the blurring of the boundaries amongst physics, chemistry, astronomy. And what else? That is my name and affiliation in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. I would claim that there's no such thing as useless knowledge. It was my ability to read and write hieroglyphs that got me my first job interview. What got me the job offer was I was willing to sing Second Sister in the faculty production of Parrots of Penzance. No such thing as useless knowledge. But the centenary that is now upon us from 1913 has an enormous number of interesting events. One of them was Niels Bohr and the idea of electron orbits around nuclei of atoms. I'll come back to that. The one that actually triggered my thoughts on this subject was Henry Moseley and the recognition that atomic number is more important than atomic weight. I'll try to explain what each of them is. But there are lots and lots of other centenaries and lots of other anniversaries. It's the 140th birthday of William Marshall Bullitt. Had you noticed that? It's his 140th birthday, isn't it? Yes.